welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of the actual watercolor painting process. So let's just jump right in. Today you can see I'm getting started with the color of the ice rink, which is this like more like lighter grayish than the sky. Just like kind of going off my memory of what ice rinks looked like, because I did actually get inspired by this from memory with the idea of the like Christmas festival marketplace or whatever. I can't pronounce it, so I'm not even gonna try because I know I'll say it wrong. But if you've ever been to the one in Carmel or like somewhere around here, it's honestly really cool. Yeah, one of the memories I have of my childhood is going there with my family, going to the ice rink and just like having hot chocolate there. But yeah, so yeah, this is a piece definitely inspired by memories I have, which was very special for me. I think the winter banner assignment and the show that you do for Honeywell really does make you think about memories, especially with the prompts that they give us. Like last year was winter activity, this year was winter adventure. And winter activity last year, I drew like me and my dog out in the snow, and my dog unfortunately passed away. So it was cool like getting to create that like and show that memory in an artistic way, because I think obviously art is one of the most true forms we use to express ourselves. Going back to the actual process of it all, as you can see here, I'm using this like flat, longer brush to kind of like edge in the details of like the smaller areas between like the arms and everything, and I'm just making sure I get the finer details, which a flat brush really helps with, so I like using that. Because rounded brushes, I feel like the bristles will kind of just stick every which way and kind of interfere with how you're painting, but a flat brush really helps you get the edges down right. And as you can see here, there are many different watercolor techniques you can use. Like some people wet the paper first and then start painting. Some people don't like wet the watercolor at all, so that's called dry on dry, and wetting the paper first and then wetting the brush is called wet on wet. Me personally, I do, I think wet on dry, which is where, like, the watercolor itself is wet because I mix it with water and the color, but the paper itself is dry, and I just think that prevents the watercolor from being too runny. And yeah, I've never been very fond of wet on wet. I've never been very fond of watercolor in general, so this assignment probably did push me out of my comfort zone a little bit, which is a good thing. I'll be honest, this assignment was a little bit ago now, so I have no idea why I held up that sample paper of the color I intended to use. Yeah, I have no idea why I did that. So maybe just to get you like a closer look at how like using samples would help with determining the colors you want for your piece, because if you're not sure exactly what color you're going to use, you should not just go ahead and paint. You should get a sample paper and you should test stuff out. Take it from me, I know, because I've just gone through with it before and it has not turned out good. Anyway, so here I'm painting this like roof of the tower in the background. I don't really know how to describe it, but it was really beautiful to see in person. But yeah, just painting that roof, kind of getting the edges right, layering the color. And what I will do with watercolor is to layer it or and add shadows. I will layer it where there should be shadows and not layer it where there aren't shadows to make it lighter. Building up the color where there are supposed to be shadows will just make it darker overall, since watercolor is such a light medium to use. Just building up the color will help make it darker and add shadows once it dries. You can't really see that well while it's still wet, but it will be there if you layer. I think the difficult part about this is learning how not to leave weird splotches in certain areas. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but once watercolor dries, there can be like areas that like look like little spots on your page, which is where the like water buildup has occurred where it wasn't supposed to. So just learning how to straighten those, like not straighten those out, but like fill in those gaps and make sure that they don't splotch too much is really important. And here you can see I built shadow right there by making it darker. I know this probably seems like an insane gap in progress, but I promise it is not as insane as you think. I guess I just didn't record painting other stuff in the background, but all I did, as you can see, is paint the walls of the ice rink and paint the tower and just go over lightly in watercolor the figures of the people. Most of the figure I would do in colored pencil because it's just easier than to do in watercolor, because watercolor does not allow you to define many details, which is why many artists will use either colored pencil or like ballpoint pens to define their watercolor works more. Like here you can see I add close hold using the colored pencils because it's very difficult to add that using just watercolor alone. While I was drawing this, I was very glad to be done with the watercolor part and be able to move on to defining details with colored pencil. I consider colored pencil one of my best mediums traditionally, and I just really like how much control you have over them compared to something like watercolor, which I'm not the best painter, so it feels like a little bit messy sometimes, and like it just kind of gets away from you after a while. And I feel like you have to be very meticulous with watercolor, but with colored pencil, it's not so strict. You can be a little bit more lenient. Brief intermission to sharpen my pencil. What I really enjoy about colored pencil is being able to build up colors and blend them. Like as you can see now, I'm going with the darker gray on that building to like put in the shadows, and later on I will blend that with a lighter color to make sure that the shadows blend in with the color of the building. Skipping to where I blend it with the white pencil, as you can see, I blended to get that perfect color. One thing I will say is that I think it is harder to get exact color matches with the colored pencil just because of how much you have to build up the colors, and how when you build up the colors it's not always the same all the way through, which might just be something I have to work on. But either way, I do find watercolor a little bit better at making new colors and making them reference accurate. But being reference accurate is not always the most important thing when it comes to making art, because sometimes taking creative liberties with the colors you choose is very important, especially if you want to set a scene. Like if it's a cold wintry scene, you might want to just use colder colors and just ignore the warmer colors in your reference. Or if you want like a vibrant impressionist landscape, I wouldn't use realistic colors. I would use like a bluish green for the grass, and just keeping in mind things like that I think will really improve your art. And here I am shading the roof of the tower right here. Another intermission to sharpen my pencil. I have to do this a lot because I very quickly wear down colored pencils because of how much shading I do and how I just use the colored pencils to draw. Like maybe I press too hardly, maybe that's why they go so fast. I don't know, we all make mistakes, but here I am just shading the tower. Also, an important note about shading towers and stuff like this is to make sure that you define what part sticks out more. Like, it'll be lighter because it's facing more light than the parts that are, like, not really light, or, like, just part of the base structure and aren't sticking out like a platform or something. So, yeah, just keeping those lighter, then keeping what's underneath that darker will help you create a more distinct definition. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed watching my watercolor process and also see how I go about using colored pencils in relation to watercolor. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will be back with a new one shortly.